They know at the box office. We'll talk about 8 movies today. Jungle Cruise doesn't have some movies don't have international box office yet, but we'll talk about the box office anyways. And of course, we'll talk about the movie. We'll catch up on the international box office later or tomorrow. But yep, Jungle Cruise is the number one movie of the weekend. And man, this movie is doing abysmally like other Disney movies. It has opened over 34 million. And yeah, we can put comparable performances like comparable performance like, for example, Godzilla vs. Kong and Cruella being comparable performances, and Space Jam: A New Legacy, and see how this movie is performing against all four of these movies. You know, yeah, Space Jam: A New Legacy and Cruella, and Godzilla vs. Kong versus Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise is behind Godzilla vs. Kong, but it is ahead of Space Jam: A New Legacy and Cruella, which Cruella opened on a holiday weekend. Yeah, and here is Jungle Cruise is, I think, down here. Here, the Jungle Cruise is there. So could Jungle Cruise outsell Godzilla? I don't think it might. I think it'll probably end up above Cruella and Space Jam: A New Legacy. Where Space Jam: A New Legacy might actually be below Cruella's final total if the movie continues to do it as poorly as it is. Yeah, but no surprise here that another flop from Disney. I predicted this movie would flop. I think they did that. Yeah, this movie. Oh, they have it to the box office now, 27 million. So yeah, this movie's a flop. I'm gonna add it to my flops list, where there is a ton of movies on that list there. And Jungle Cruise is performing far worse than Black Widow. I don't think Disney Plus will save Jungle Cruise like Black Widow. Black Widow was saved by Disney Plus as well. And we're gonna add, I got to add Snake Eyes to the list later. But yeah, we'll start with Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise is performing even worse than Space Jam. Negative at the beginning, negative $250 million loss currently for Disney. Yeah, and Jungle Cruise, man, this movie is a massive failure. Actually, it's $340 million loss at this moment. So that's even more. That's like the biggest loss in movie history. This movie is at a $340 million loss. This is so hilarious. Disney is losing so much money on this movie. And I wouldn't be surprised if the whole changes at the original ride is part of that. Okay, the whole changes at the original ride for no reason, and the whole hit and the whole decline of Disney in a nutshell. And yeah, what the budget for Green Knight? I gotta see this here. Budget for Green Knight. 22.5 million to 9 million. I put in the middle $14 million budget. It only made 6 million. But yeah, the budget is pretty much. I think put like 15 million. But yep, it's another King Arthur movie flop. Not surprised at all. So yeah, it might not make. It needs to make $40 million to break even again. If it does well internationally, I think it'll end up making. If it has good wigs, it'll probably make up like $20 million domestically. Or considering how people love this movie, it'll probably will have good wigs because this movie was projected to open last. Stillwater was projected to beat this movie at the box office, but it beat Stillwater at the box office. So we will see about the Green Knight and international sales, of course, as well. Will also play a factor to it. Next is Old. This movie is a box office success. It's having pretty good wigs at the box office. It's having average wigs. This is no surprise. And Old has a $16 million budget, so therefore, it is not a box office flop. Next movie on the list is Black Widow. $343 million made. Yeah, that's not a lot of money. Of course, if you include Disney Plus money. That's don't have Black Widow on this list of flops because of Disney Plus, but I have movies like Wire on the list because Black Widow actually has Disney Plus numbers, unlike Wire. Doesn't have any Disney Plus members. But again, Marvel is just not good at having good wigs anymore. Avengers had bad wigs. No Way Home had bad wigs as well. You know, or No Way Home over like $200 million, and making $393 million budget. Dollars. A movie that opens with $200 million that had good wigs would at least end over $550 million at the box office. Far From Home. But yeah, Captain Marvel had bad wigs as well, I believe. Next movie is Stillwater. Not surprised this movie is a flop. Not surprised no one wants to see this movie. This movie takes a giant dump over middle America. This movie is just... yeah. People don't like this movie, especially conservatives. It's a giant slap in the face to conservatives. So yeah, conservatives are not going to like this movie. Which is what they're trying to advertise this movie to. And it failed. This movie is a disaster. Was a disaster waiting to happen. And yeah, they don't have a budget for this movie. You know, $20 million. So that means officially this movie is a loss of $20 million. It needs to make $40 million. What would be reasonable here? And yeah, this is Stillwater. No surprise, is a flop. No surprise, and this movie will perform abysmally internationally as well. You know, so it's another huge box office failure for Hollywood. Another huge box office failure for Hollywood here. 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 And no surprise they're losing money on this movie. Focus Pictures really screwed up for Stillwater. Next is Space Jam: A New Legacy. This movie's having abysmal ratings, even though because it seems that the audience that wants to come and see this movie are not coming to see it, with its family audiences, and just the fact that people don't like LeBron James anyways. So yeah, this movie needs to make like $300 million. So it's around $178 million loss. Still, that's a lot of money. $178 million loss. That's a lot of money still being lost on Space Jam: A New Legacy. Yeah. Or it's at around $150 million loss, not 178. $150 million loss. Man, this is like one of the biggest flops of all time. Space Jam: A New Legacy. This is gonna be. Next is Snake Eyes. Again, no one wants to see this movie. Not too surprising. I think this movie is just a hard sell in general. Snake Eyes. This movie, they're trying to create a new fan base for a movie that is for a movie series that isn't really too popular. And not too surprising, this movie is a box office failure. This movie's at $112 million loss. Oh my, that's a lot. That's a lot of money being lost to Paramount. But again, Quiet Place was successful, but this movie seems to not be successful at all. So yeah, and all the people who were going to buy this movie, wanted to see this movie, the established fan base, not the new fans, which are the only ones that are going to be like, oh my god, this movie's so amazing, and they become a new fan of the G.I. Joe series or something like that. Those are the only people who are really watching this at this point. And you can see by a 70% swap that's the case. F9. This movie made $641 million at the box office. Again, this movie is slowing down. But yeah, we're going to get eternal Fast and the Furious movies. That's what this means. We're going to continue getting eternal Fast and the Furious movies. And yeah, next is The Boss Baby. Yep, this movie is still performing relatively well, considering the fact that it is not really released internationally, as released in Mexico, South Korea, I believe. It has released in Mexico, South Korea, and Lebanon. You can really see the markets they released it in. Lebanon, they released it in there. They released it in most of like South America and stuff. Yeah, you see the UK here. The UK is 10/22/2021. But that's because that's where they were releasing it on the UK, Germany, and all these other countries. They were releasing this movie in October, but I was called a troll for saying this. I was called a troll for saying this. Most of the huge markets where this movie's gonna make money is not coming out until September, late August, and early October, and late October. So yeah, this movie is performing relatively well for having no international box office at all. Releasing, Colombia, for example, or releasing in Belgium or the Netherlands. These are not like the biggest countries for box office appeal. The largest markets they release it in is Mexico and South Korea, and they're performing, and this movie is performing relatively well in South Korea and Mexico. So, and it's having relatively well ratings in America. Next is a cut for Forever Purge. Yep, it seems we'll get Forever Purge movies because that's what this box office success means. It means we'll get more Purge because that's what this feels like. I could get Forever Purge movies, and yeah, this movie's having pretty good ratings, surprisingly as well. I think the next major box success is gonna be Venom 2, not Shang-Chi, Venom 2. That's like the next major box office success. But it seems that this week has overall been a slow weekend for the box office here. And yeah, I'm not surprised that we're having a lot of movies underperform because the box office has that recovered. And younger families don't want to be avoiding movie theaters at all costs. Families are the big audience that has not come back to the theaters yet. It's mostly been young people who are just going to see movies, mostly young people are going to go see movies. The funny thing is they were saying that young people are the ones that are not seeing movies in theaters. Mostly older people and families that are not seeing movies in the theaters. Mostly us young millennials and Gen Z going and seeing these movies in the theaters, and yeah. We have the highest grossing movies of 2021 here. And yeah, Space Jam: A New Legacy. We have Jungle Cruise. No one watching that. Nobody cares about Jungle Cruise. I'm not too surprised that Jungle Cruise is flopping at the box office. But again, Disney might, magically make Jungle Cruise do well at the box office. And yeah. Yeah, the international markets are still updating. Many international markets are still updating the box office here. Yo. Yo. Yeah. And I think the thing of why a lot of these movies are flopping is because of China. Though Hollywood is just try thinking they rely on China. I think that's the big problem. Hollywood thinks they can rely on China, and the worldwide box office is showing that, yeah, Hollywood, you need to stop relying on fucking China all the time. Okay? Marvel is gonna lose money. Is losing money now because they're not releasing them, because they're not getting the Chinese release dates that they would have gotten. Movies like Space Jam, they tried to beg China to get this movie in the country. Because China doesn't care if people they don't like the movie. They'll go see it anyways. Okay? Jungle Cruise as well. Not releasing in China either. Jungle Cruise is not going to release in China. You really think they're going to release that in China? No, they're not. And yeah, the Walt Disney, I think the biggest losers of the week is the Walt Disney Company. The Walt Disney Company is the biggest losers. And the biggest winners of the box office so far is Universal. Even if the box office does lose money for Universal, F9 is a massive success. The Forever Purge is a success. Old is a success. So Universal is the only company that has been doing good during this time. Focus has a flop. Warner Bros. Has had flop after flop. In the Heights and Space Jam: A New Legacy, people just don't want to see either of those movies. Especially In the Heights. Even on HBO Max, people didn't want to care for In the Heights as well. Godzilla seems to be the only success so far this year. And Paramount, well, they had the Quiet Place come out, but they also had Snake Eyes, which is the dual-edged sword that does not work. So, And it might teach them a lesson, like of Transformers, The Last Night, which that movie taught Belmont a big lesson. How not to make a movie, and I think the next time they make a G.I. Joe movie, they're gonna definitely do what people want and not make movies that was trying to get new fans but alienating old fans. I think that's like the worst. That's like the worst thing you could do if you put a whole established IP. Trying to get new fans but alienating the old fans at the same time. It's pretty tough to reboot something because Snake Eyes I believe is a reboot of G.I. Joe, but it's absolutely man. Cruella, not surprised. This movie, like movies like Cruella, the Cruellas of the world, the Cruellas of the world. Like, does anyone really want to see a Cruella movie? Yeah, the movie has made money, has had good legs, but you have the Cruellas of the world, the Hitman's Bodyguard of the world, and yeah, there we go about the box office. So yep, another pretty abysmal week for the box office for the Suicide Squad. Setting up the box office, or will that movie flop? I think the Suicide Squad might be more Buzz' first big success since, of course, Godzilla vs. Kong. And yeah, that's basically it about this video. Goodbye.